Uh, Friends, it's such a pleasure to have India's among the 5 best-selling authors with us, Miss Preeti Shenoy. So a huge round of applause again. She is also, it will come as, उनको देख के शायद ऐसा नहीं लगेगा, but Forbes puts her amongst the top 100 influencers, celebrities in the country. So that is the power that a woman has brought. And it is indeed such a privilege to be talking to you, ma'am, in front of a very young crowd. Because you see, the youth are what are going to take this country forward. And all of us, we know very well that since last year, since 2022, India has entered into the demographic dividend, and it will continue to remain so till 2046. So it is going to be the age of these youth. And one thing that makes or breaks the youth, I feel as an academician, is reading. And if we are eager to read, what do we read? I think people like you, authors like you, are giving us material to read, good things to read. So that is why Plato ने जो कहा था that in his ideal republic, he needs writers and good writers. So that is the job that you are fulfilling, ma'am. आज दोपहर का जो टॉपिक है लव, सेक्स एंड धोखा, तो मैम लव यहाँ पे जितने भी बैठे हैं सब तरसते हैं, सेक्स के लिए फैंटेसाइज करते हैं
They must have done it also. They won't tell you.
और धोखा सब खा के बैठे हैं. Am I right when I say that? So, taking our discussion a little forward, ma'am, my first question to you is, since 2011, if I'm not mistaken, you have been really prolifically writing. 2023, in fact, your latest book has just come out, A Place Called Home. It has been 15 books, 14 novels, and 2 non-fiction books. Plus, you are a blogger. Plus, you have written short stories. Candies and bubblegums, or rather, it is 34 bubblegums and candies. In this age of Instagram reels, and in this age of an explosive social media, how and in what way do you think has the written word, the printed word, continued to keep its sway? जिंदा कैसे है आज भी एक किताब जिंदा कैसे है? In what way?
Okay, before I answer that, are you guys excited for this session? Louder! How many of you came here just hearing the name love, sex or dhoka, especially sex? No one is honest, so you're all giving me dhoka, right? Okay, fine. So I'm very happy to be here, very happy to see you guys. So to answer ma'am's question about how I keep the written word going in this age of Instagram, I just have one thing to say. I am on Instagram, I am on Twitter, and you have to be, because you have to be where your audience is if you want to connect with your audience. And I absolutely love reading. Not just my books, I read a lot. For the past 4 years, those of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I have been recommending books. And these are in my highlights. And a lot of people tell me that after I've recommended, they've gone and picked up that book. So to me, one thing is very clear. When it comes to writing, your competition is not the other authors. Okay, your competition is the smartphone. Because your writing should be so good that the person doesn't pick up the phone and look at the phone, because all of us are struggling. We all have short attention spans. I can hear a phone go off just now as I speak. And yeah, the urge to check the phone is immense. It's like we cannot break free from that. So in such an era, if you want your writing to captivate, the person has to get something out of writing. Either they get inspired, and most of my books do inspire people, or they have to be emotionally involved with the characters. And a lot of people are emotionally involved with my characters. So, and I keep it simple, you know. So because my writing is, to be honest, People who tell me I haven't read, I don't read, I've forgotten how to read. Okay, I want to read, but after I've just lost touch with reading. So I always make these tips on how to get back into the reading habit. And the thing is, the book has to be interesting. So if you have forgotten how to read and then you pick up a book which is boring, okay, you're going to make it hard for yourself. So it has to be a book which keeps you turning pages, which makes you smile, which makes you want to read more and more. And I've mostly kept all my books like that. And I connect with my audience. Anyone who has written to me here on Instagram would have got a reply, for sure. So I always try and ensure that. And that's how I stay connected with my audience. And of course, the amount of work that goes into each book is tremendous. So that's how I keep it going.
Thank you, ma'am. One thing, friends, that I wanted to begin this session with. Ma'am was being interviewed in Coimbatore by someone in one of the crossword bookstores, I guess, where someone asked her a very good question. How are you able to exuberate so much of positivity? तो इन्होंने जो जवाब दिया था, I think we should all remember that sentence.
I don't remember.
I have it with me. She very coolly replied, and we can see she's a very cool person. She said, I don't have control over what happens to me, but I do have control over what I choose to focus on.
Yeah.
So I think that is the watchword we all have to remember. Yeah. And thank you for giving us that sentence, because it means a lot to me. I think this was 3 years back in 2019. One of, I think, your book launch of Wake Up, Life is Calling. And that is when you had come up with this. Taking this session a little forward, ma'am, do you think in this world, because we are already talking about social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, this, that, do you think that today something like a sex scene, which is already available in the AV medium, let's say, are young people still interested in reading about it? Now, why I'm asking this question, because you see, Shobha Day, in one of her interviews, had once said that all the sex scenes that she describes are either personally experienced or witnessed. So what makes you describe a scene, and whom do you keep in mind when you are writing?
So the thing is, I don't keep anyone in mind when I am writing, because I've got 2 grown-up kids. Okay, my son is sitting right here in the audience. And so the thing is, if I think about my family, or if I think about my husband, or what are they going to think about it when I write a sex scene, then I won't be writing. So I'm just like in the book, I am with the character, I get into the character's head. And I think it's different, because sex scenes which you see in, mostly if you consume porn, there are no feelings, and everyone knows it's not real. So no one can be like that. So yeah, there is a lot of emotions that go into each of my scene. And when I get into a character's head, like, it's not in isolation. And if it's needed for the book, yes, I write it. But when it's not needed for the book, I don't write it. For example, when Love Came Calling, it's the story of Pooja Arush. Now they are like 18, and Arush, by the way, the sequel to that book is coming soon. It's coming in July. So for that book, there was no, really sex scene as such needed. So I didn't write that. And then you can write it very classily. Because I don't know how many of you are aware, there is something called the Bad Sex Scene Award. Okay, so every year, like, in addition to the Booker Prize and all of that, there are some authors, like, they get the Bad Sex Scene Award, because sometimes, and mostly it's all by men. Mostly that award is won by men. Because, they don't get into the emotions, and they don't get into a woman's mind when they're writing it. Now, because for men, like, it's very different. Men get excited by visual stimulus. Okay, so they see, like, they see cleavage, so some are like, they see boobs, or they see butt, they get excited. But for women, it's different, For women, there has to be an emotional connect. So I keep all of that in mind when I'm writing. Now, just because you see a six-pack abs on a guy, it doesn't mean you want to go and sleep with that guy, So, yeah. Sorry to all the young men here building their six-packs, but yeah, you need to work on your game a bit more. So yeah, that's how I write it. So I keep these things in mind, because that is the reality, that is the truth. And all my books do bring in that reality element. So yes, that's how I focus on the,
I really love the way you describe this because somehow I don't know why all of us we think that reality is always bitter and bad. But what you have very nicely and beautifully explained that reality is beautiful and it is also emotionally connected with each other. So ultimately, books are an emotional connect with the writer and the reader, isn't
Yes.
it? Or rather, with the character and the reader.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. So, 15 long list of books, ma'am. But most of your books, and I have read at least 4 of them completely, most of your books I have found are women centric. Your being a woman, I mean, your own gender, played a role in choosing women characters and women centric novels?
See, I wouldn't say that. So, when I initially started writing, it was mostly, it was like most of my books do have women, strong women characters, I agree. But I've also written from the male point of view. The one you cannot have, it's Aman, it's male point of view. 100 Little Flames, it's about a grandfather and a grandson. So there it's male protagonist, because my male readers started writing to me saying, why don't you write from our point of view? And then after I wrote 100 Little Flames, so many young men wrote to me and saying, how did you know what we were thinking? So it's basically the emotions. When it comes to emotions, we are all the same. The pain of rejection, whether you're a girl, whether you're a guy, it's going to hurt you the same way. The only difference is, the guy will probably, girl will cry, she'll eat heaps of ice cream, she'll weep to her friends, she'll move on. The guy, maybe after 6 months, he'll drunk dial her and say, I wish we were together. Probably that's the only difference. We process it differently. So yeah, that's what it is.
Perfect, ma'am. I'm going to move into your world of your books, ma'am, now. And one book which was
Just call me Preeti, because this
Okay.
ma'am, yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So this was the first book that I read, and I guess it was the first fictional novel that you wrote. Life is what you make it. I have become very closely associated with one of the characters of that book called Ankita. Now, you have very boldly, and I am underlining the words boldly, depicted Ankita getting into relationships, rejecting them, again immediately afterwards getting into another relationship with another man, again उसमें से भी बाहर निकल के getting into a relationship with a third person. Now, generally in the Indian context, हमेशा उल्टा होता है. You see the male protagonists,
Yeah.
they are getting into relationships with different women. You have boldly portrayed a woman, Ankita, and she's brilliant otherwise also. She's academically very well accomplished. She's getting in and out of relationships. So, was there some worry before you presented the character or developed the character of Ankita? Were you a little scared? Or were you going gung ho that nay, women also have the right to reject and then accept someone else?
So, to be honest, I was not even thinking about any of that. My only worry was, will this book get published? That was my only worry. I said, okay, I have given it my all. This book has taken me 2 years to write. That book was rejected more than 39 times.
What are you saying?
Yeah, that book was rejected. And that was the book, like I got rejected not only in India. I tried getting it published in UK. It was rejected there as well. Everyone rejected that book. And it was like very hard. It was very, very hard. But I had given it my all. And today, that book has sold more than 1 million copies.
Absolutely. It is
So-
in the top selling
Yeah.
list
Yeah,
everywhere.
everywhere. And it's got a sequel also. But yeah, I was not worried about, Ankita's character as such. Because see, to be honest, I think people don't write about it. So I feel there's a lot of honesty in my writing.
I agree.
See,
I
because
agree.
a girl, when she's Ankita at that time, at the start of the book, is 19. From 19 to
Right.
21, how can a girl have, unless, you changing, you're discovering yourself. So it's perfectly normal to dump a guy after 6 months and get involved with another guy. And in India, somehow we think that's a bad thing. Oh, she's had 3-4 relationships.
True.
I mean, it's not. It's okay, because you're still not sure of yourself. So, and that's the natural thing. It's okay, because people break up and then people have a problem with Abhi's character. Mostly young men have a problem
Yes.
with Abhi's character because they think that, why didn't she reciprocate his love? Now, just because he loved her doesn't mean that she has to reciprocate his love or feel the same way. And Ankita is bold enough to say it, because she's smart, she's young, she's attractive, she's got so many guys who are crazy about her. So she can like kind of, she just follows her heart. So I felt I had to give that honesty to Ankita. So, and that's what I did. I had to remain true to that character because that's just who she is.
Very well said,
And
ma'am. Very well said.
this contrasts with Diksha in Secret Wish List,
Exactly.
who is timid. So she doesn't have that. So she will not get into another relationship. There was one relationship she got into. She got caught. She got caught kissing, and then her parents sent her off. But she follows the rules, So even in Rule Breakers, there are two contrasting characters. Veda is a rule follower, and her sister is a rule breaker. The same situation you can deal with differently. So yeah, I just stay true to the character. I don't worry about how will people see it, what will people think of me, because I feel honesty is so important in writing.
That was very well put, right, friends? I mean, very honest as a writer. How many writers amongst us give that kind of a platform, a blunt, frank description and portrayal of a character? Most of the times, as far as I have read Indian authors, and I'm sorry to say, but most of them have been romantic male authors.
Oh yes, yeah.
But they will always.
Don't read their books.
Yes,
kidding.
Actually don't.
No, just kidding, just kidding. Read whatever gives you
So-
joy, yeah.
So, most of these so-called romantic male authors, they indirectly, of course, hidden meaning may, but they always raise a question mark. If the boy is interested, why isn't the girl reciprocating? She should.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the times, the parents tell this to the girl कि उसके पास नौकरी है, education है, घर है, खुद की गाड़ी है, तो तू हाँ बोल दे शादी के लिए. So this veiled attack on a girl's morality, I have found in most of the Indian male romantic authors.
Absolutely, yes.
But your book came as a very fresh take, Preeti, because it openly talked about Ankita
Yeah.
and it did not hesitate. So, my next question, taking this conversation forward, and it's becoming interesting with every moment now, would you hesitate or would you worry in portraying a woman character if the situation demands in your novel? Would you worry or hesitate in showing her as going to beer bars and pubs and having beers and wine, whiskey, holding a cigarette in hand and smoking?
Yes, I have created such a character in It's All in the Planets.
Oh,
so
yes.
there's this guy, Techie, okay? He's like average Bangalore guy, because if you're in Bangalore, what other profession can you have? You'll be a techie. So Aniket is a techie, and he falls in love with Trish, who's a supermodel and who's totally out of his league. And yes, so I don't hesitate to create such characters. So the one thing that I want to mention is that one thing which I feel strongly about, especially in India, only 19% of the women are earning in India. Okay, 19%. That's
One
it.
nine.
19, as per the latest report. Okay, so majority of the women are not financially independent. Only 19% of the women actually contribute to the labor market. So then what happens is this creates an imbalance in relationships. Okay, so what happens? The person, no matter how much he loves you, the person who has the money, the power tilts a little bit in favor of that person in a relationship. And I've tried to highlight this fact in a very, maybe subtle way or maybe not so subtle way in most of my books. Because with financial independence comes freedom, comes courage to speak your mind. And this is something I feel truly strongly about. In India, where there is still female infanticide, we are in this 2023, but still girl babies are being killed off, and I feel strongly about it. So I try to raise these issues through my books, but not directly. So I create strong women characters, and it gives women hope, which I feel happy about.
But that's the best way a writer can actually create an awareness and raise a point. Oh, well, most of the times, again, I mean, I'm sorry to make this discrimination, so to speak, but most of the time, male authors in India and contemporary authors somehow don't give that leeway to female characters. It is either, on this extreme or on the other extreme. But coming to Rule Breakers, one book that I have enjoyed immensely, The Rule Breakers, the title itself attracted me so much. Someone who is ready to break the rules. But then again, here you have presented, for instance, Veda. Veda follows every rule by the book and is tortured at every step. And she keeps on telling herself, "Mujhe ye nahi karna chahiye because I'm not supposed to do this." And then she's married off to a gay, a homosexual. And Bhuvan doesn't care for her initially at all. It is only when the two of them they confess. Now, all these rule breakers, so to speak, come together at the end of the novel and discover a very different and an intimate not in a sexual term, but in a connected term. They discover a very beautiful relationship. So, what prompted you to write The Rule Breakers? Because it has come out as one of your best, if you ask me, the best novel.
So that book actually was very hard to write because that book is in 4 parts and there is like so many things happening in that book. So it was honestly very hard to write, and the homosexuality part I wanted to address it because mostly other Indian authors don't touch upon it, and it's very much there in society. Like if you're gay, there is so much pressure. Parents don't accept it, and many people get married just to please their parents. Like we know so many stories, and it's actually quite sad. And the thing is, you don't need sex to have a connection. You don't need to have a physical relation to have a connect with somebody. And that comes across in that book when there's one scene where Veda and Bhuvan are actually hugging. And they're so close because by then, like, they actually care for each other. So yeah, I felt that it was needed to write, and that book was
absolutely
super
wonderful.
hard to write, super hard. It went through so many revisions, it went through so many things, and I've drawn from real life experiences in that
Really?
book. Yes,
Oh,
because
wow.
I think she's in a center called Sankalp. So
Sankalp, yes.
I have volunteered at such an organization.
Okay.
So I used to go and work with the underprivileged children. I used to teach them English and math. So a lot of things that you read in the book is drawn from direct experience. So you will find that Kajol and Sanju feel very real. There are 2 characters in the book who come from very
And
socially.
then Sanju is the one who ultimately does not survive.
Yeah.
So-
So it's like you feel for the characters because they're mostly like drawn from real life, and they like I did feel a connection with those kids when I was teaching them, and I put all of that in the book.
But then, Preeti, rather, did you face any kind of a negative feedback because you have so boldly spoken about Bhuvan and his, I personally choose to call it a different sexual preference. So, was there a negative feedback where people told you that ऐसा मत लिखो यार, इसको छोड़ दो यार, कुछ और लिखो, take some other topic? Because you see, the Rule Breakers talks about gender discrimination, domestic violence, homosexuality. ये सब एक ही किताब में मिलना, and that also very honestly and very boldly. I don't think anybody in contemporary times has been able to do that. So,
And interesting, like you'll want to turn the page to know what happens.
true.
Yeah.
so
No,
was there
actually-
a negative?
No one will dare tell me to my face. if they are like talking behind my back, it doesn't bother me because yeah, people will talk, and mostly the reviews have been very good. Yeah, because it's very hard. See, it's very easy to troll someone on Twitter or Instagram, but we must remember that as much as it's easy to troll, it's also easy to block. So for me, it's just like I don't allow it to affect me. So people have said if people say nasty things, they get blocked because I don't have to give my energy to someone's nastiness. That is something going on in their head. Why should I allow it to affect my energy or
That's
my vibe?
very well
You
put.
know?
I think all of us will have to learn that lesson.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because see, the thing is when you write, okay, and I always say this, when you write, it's almost like standing naked in front of a stage and telling people to comment. It is like that because you're exposing who you are. Your emotions are on display. What you feel is on display. Who you are as a person is on display, and that's a very hard thing. So as a writer, you have to grow a thick skin. Maybe my first book, I was affected. It was 1 inch thick. Then second book, 2 inches thick. So now you can say anything about my writing. It doesn't bother me because 15 books. So I always see if there is some merit in the criticism. It's not that I just dismiss any criticism as rubbish. So I always see, and if there is merit, I try and improve it in the next book.
Great. I mean, I love the way you have answered this particular question, because you see, a lot of these youngsters sitting in front of both of us, Preeti, might be budding writers,
Yeah.
poets, all right? And most of them, as very young people, might be a little scared of coming across negative criticism.
Yeah.
But I think I take a lot of hope in what you just
Yeah.
said, that you have to go ahead and do your work honestly,
Yeah.
not paying too much of attention to the negative criticism, which in any ways is going to come.
Yes.
Some of it is definitely going to come. So,
See, mostly examine where the negativity is coming from. Is it coming from a place of jealousy, or is it actually going to improve your work? And don't be bothered, because people are going to talk anyway. Like, keep a closed circle and let only the opinion of that closed circle matter to you. So once you have your closed circle, the world can say anything. You have to, derive that strength from that, because that's the only way you can, for anything in life, not just for writing, whether it's a career, whether it's clothes you wear, whether, any decision that you take, you just have to be like very firm. If that's what you want, that's what you want. Doesn't matter what others say.
perfect. I think she deserves an applause for this particular absolutely gorgeous answer. Taking our discussion a little forward, and friends, this is for all of us to know and understand. In the rule breakers, I just spoke of so many issues that Preeti has raised: gender discrimination, domestic violence, and homosexuality. But she has not stopped there. Most of us, we are still even today ready to talk of gender discrimination, violence, homosexuality also. But even today, none of us, and I will not be exaggerating if I say none of us, are ready to talk about mental illnesses.
Oh, yeah.
In her sequel, uh, Wake Up, Life is Calling, which is Ankita's story, which is being taken forward, you have very boldly talked about bipolar disorder, how Ankita tries to commit suicide, and you have had no qualms in showing her as attempting a suicide. You have not tried to shade her or shield her as the author, which you could jolly well have done. So, ये positivity कहाँ से आ रही है? I mean, you are really bringing so much of positivity, because you show Ankita struggling, going down, hitting the rock bottom, and then still taking strength to stand up. So, from where are you generating this positivity, and what prompted you to tackle such a taboo subject as mental disorders?
So I felt mental health, I feel people don't talk about it. And I felt it's so important. And for that book, I was living in UK at that time. And I knew someone who was a psychiatric nurse. So I spoke to her a lot. And then, when I visited India, I went to Nimhans. They showed me everything inside, what it was like. Then I spoke to people who had suffered from bipolar disorder. And the thing is, the problem is in India, we won't give mental disorders a name. We won't say schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or depression. We don't give it names. We'll just say, oh, there's a problem with that person. It's always hush hush. Even parents don't talk about it. And there's still, I'm sorry to say, there's still a stigma attached to mental health, which I felt was necessary to be tackled. And that's why I went ahead and wrote that book. And yeah, I felt the sequel was needed. And the thing is, when you put a young person in there, and I've drawn from my own college experiences.
Really?
Yeah, for
Okay.
when life is what you make it, it's all the colleges which like I went to. And
Okay,
so it
okay.
feels very real, because it adds that layer of reality to it. And yes, I think these subjects need to be talked about. And if my books, like a lot of people write to me and tell me that after, you have no idea, your book gave me hope when I wanted to kill myself.
Oh, yes. One
So-
of the reviewers was me, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. Because
Okay.
I also thought that it gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Though I don't have anybody in the family like this, but there is a family friend who is dealing with
Yeah.
a family member with bipolar disorder. So your book came as a ray of hope.
Yeah. So the thing is, I also write like, see, as much as Shubha has said, talked about my positivity, my short stories are very dark. Okay, they're very dark. There's no hope, there's no redemption. You'll feel horrible after reading the story. And yeah, that collection is coming out at the end of the year. So it's a story collection. Some of them are slightly longer stories because that is also humanity. Now, as much as there is hope, that it's just two sides of a coin. So we have to like kind of this thing, and it's nice that they are stories because they're an escape. Okay, they're
Very
a good
true.
escape. But
Very
when it's
true.
a book, but I would never write a novel which is entirely dark and which makes you feel horrible because you've invested so many hours in that novel. But a short story book gives you that little jolt, like how everyone loves to watch like horror movies and things
Yes.
like, gives you a little jolt. And yeah, so yes, so I do focus on the both sides. And so it's not always positive. So my writing tends to be like, some of my short stories do tend to be dark. And because I just write the story as it comes to me. So that's just how it is.
Great. I mean, that's another insight into the way you write. But since we are on the topic of writing, Preeti, there are a lot of youngsters, almost all of them are very young people watching us and listening to you rather. What would you say if one of them wants to pick up the pen? Because generally, you see, all of us have a very romantic vision के वो दिल की आवाज कलम में निकल के कागज पे समा गई types. But writing ऐसा होता नहीं है.
No.
Writing takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
So, what I want to ask you is that if one of them wants to pick up the pen and start writing, what advice would you give to them? How to go about it?
If you really want to write, like, only one advice, BIC, butt in chair. Put your butt in the chair and write. That's only it. It's like anything else. It's like bodybuilding. You can't expect not to go to the gym and have a great body. It's like you have to exercise that writing muscle. So write every day, whatever it is. You can write a blog post, and everything need not be for public consumption. So if anyone wants to be a writer, just write every day, either in your diary or an email or a blog post or whatever it is. You should want to write. So because it's a very difficult profession, and it's I would say a very lonely profession, because, and you have to be okay with being lonely, because you just have to sit and
That
get into
means
your head.
the social life gets a little.
I mean, I'm hugely introverted. People may not believe
Oh,
this about
really?
me. Like, I'm very, very introverted. So I don't go out for parties. I hate loud places.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I just sit and write. So if you are like, I'm not saying that's an essential thing, but it helps.
So, do you read yourself a lot?
No,
Has that
once I have,
helped? Has that helped you in writing in some way?
oh, I read other authors a lot, but I don't read my own books, because once I've written a book, it's done for me, because my mind is already on the next book.
But then you keep on reading other authors a lot.
A lot. I read
Oh,
a
really?
lot. Yes.
So that becomes so. I mean,
I read a lot. I watch a lot of shows.
Oh, lovely. So
Yeah.
input has to be there. This is what you're trying to say.
Totally. You need, and you have to travel, meet different people, have new experiences. That helps. Like, I think traveling like kind of helps, because you have different stimulus. When you go to a place, it's so different from what you're usually used to, and that like gives you a jolt.
So true. So, in one of your interviews, Preeti, you mentioned that if there was one author you would have loved to meet, it would have been the American poet Emily Dickinson. And in fact, you have used one of her poems in your The Secret Bucket list. So, why haven't you tried your hand at poetry?
Oh, I've written more than 100 or 200 poems.
Have they been published?
So the thing is, poetry doesn't give you money. So everyone wants money. So publishers will not publish a poetry. I mean, in the end of the day, writing is a business. If the book sells, they'll
Very
publish
true.
it. No one is doing it for social service.
All right.
So yeah, my poems are free to read. You can just go on my blog and type
Really?
poems. Yeah, you can read all my
Okay.
poetry. So I've written a lot of poems. I love poetry. Like,
So, has Emily Dickinson influenced you in some way?
not really. Not really. I just love her words. I love some of the things she says. Then I think I have used Langston Hughes.
Langston
his
Hughes,
poem
okay.
I've used, and some on this in this book also, because I love it. Like, I try to begin. Each section. This book is divided into 4 sections, and each section begins with an. I think they are Arabic poets. One is like part 4 is How beautiful to find a heart that loves you without asking you for anything but to be okay. Khalil
Is that
Gibran.
Gibran? Khalil Gibran?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yes. Okay.
So yeah, I try to incorporate that. And okay, there's another one by Hafiz. Your heart and my heart are very, very old friends. So this is what part 3 starts with. It just
Oh,
gives you
wow.
that beautiful feeling when you start reading a section.
Oh, lovely, lovely. There is one book, apart from the life and the sequel, which has, captured my attention to a great extent. The one you cannot have.
Yeah.
In fact, this is in all your novels. This is one of those rare books which has a slightly negative title.
Yeah.
The one you cannot have.
True.
And it weaves a web of complex relationships. There is Aman, there is Shruti, there is
Yes. Anjali, yeah.
Anjali, and then there is
Mark,
Rishabh.
yeah.
So it, such complex relationships need lot of mulling over.
Yeah.
And yet at the end of it, I mean, theirs was a relationship which was for the forever kind wala relationship. And yet Aman and Shruti broke up.
Yeah.
So it broke my heart, when I read that. So, kaise, I mean, how did you weave such a complex relationship and still kept the storyline intact?
Because I felt it happens in real life. Yeah, every time, like, you'll think it's the one great love. You'll be in a relationship with a person for 3 years, 4 years. You'll think you'll get married and have kids and all. But that doesn't happen. I mean, and no matter whether you're married, committed, divorced, if you have a girlfriend, there will always be the one you cannot have. Because, humans are like that. Oh, maybe that person, maybe it would have worked out better. So, yeah, I
Very
use
true.
that in my books and just stayed true. Yeah.
Okay. Most of your novels, Preeti, are based in the urban sections, sectors, cities of India. And most of them are youth. So, why there has not been any rural India being projected?
No, in fact, there is because in 100 Little Flames, it's completely set in a small village called Pungavanam in Kerala. And it's a very beautifully described village. And that's completely rural. So it's not that I write only urban stories.
In the Rule Breakers also, I mean, initially Veda's
yeah,
family lives
Joshimath.
in Joshimath,
Yes.
which is now in Doldrums
Yes.
these days.
I know that. I saw that, yeah.
But then basically you see the metros, the megacities, and its lifestyle has been portrayed beautifully well.
Yeah.
So is it because you yourself have lived in the big cities?
Yeah, almost all the books that I have, all the places that I have described in my books are places I have lived in. They are places I have lived in, places I have a connection with, and that comes across in the books. So, yeah.
Okay. So we are hoping that the journey, of course, continues. But Preeti, there's a popular opinion that you are known as the Daniel Steele of India. So what is your take on that?
You can call me whatever, call me Sydney Sheldon, Daniel Steele, Shah Rukh Khan if you please, but buy my books and read my books. So it doesn't matter because these are things which people say, like, these are just, these are just epithets which people confer upon me. Like, it honestly doesn't matter to me what, as long as you guys are reading and as long as you guys have a connection with my work and as long as my work gives you all something to take away, I'm happy.
Great. I mean, I appreciate that tremendously. However, Preeti, I guess you will agree with me when I say this, that writing industry in India, not only in the current times are still a little better, but traditionally speaking, writing industry in India has largely been male dominated. And suddenly you burst onto the scene and you become the bestseller, and book after book starts coming into that list of the bestsellers. Has that created jealousies, or has that troubled them or made them uncomfortable? You have worked a lot to reach where you are.
But made whom uncomfortable?
The male writers.
Oh, I haven't asked them. I haven't asked them because, yeah, but it is hard because very much like in every other sector, there is an old boys club. Okay, you will find this when my books come out. You will find this when the books of any male authors come out.
Yes.
And this I'm answering only because you asked me, Shubha. They'll promote each other's book. They'll tweet each other's book.
Exactly.
But yeah, I have a few friends who will, and mostly I have you guys, my readers. So it doesn't matter whether they tweet or they don't tweet. It's like if you guys pick up my book and, like, for example, if you like my book, you will go tell 10 of your friends, read this book helped me, and That's what ultimately counts. So, yeah, jealousies, definitely, it has spawned jealousies. And I should not single out men here. Even women have been jealous. So, it doesn't matter, because ultimately what matters is my writing, my connection with the readers. And it really, like, I would be lying if I said, I'm absolutely cool about it. I mean, you will feel a little bad if you are left out of things, but then the very next moment you realize how much you have, and
Right.
it's not worth feeling bad about. So that's how you deal with it. You just look at what you have created, and that's how I deal with it.
So, friends, you'll agree with me. We are sitting in front of a very strong person, and it takes a lot to come to this level. I must appreciate that tremendously, because you see, publishers are male,
Yeah.
proofreaders are male. If
Oh, I have female editors, and
I mean,
yeah,
most of the
yeah, yeah,
times, uh, other competitors are male.
yeah.
So they will, if not go all out to keep you out from the
Oh,
publishing
they do,
industry,
yes.
but
They do, yeah.
they will keep on nudging each other's. थोड़ा कोहनी ऐसे करेंगे कि अरे इसकी book कहाँ छाप रहे
Yeah,
हो?
yeah.
That kind of politics you must be experiencing, and you must have struggled through it a lot.
No, not really. Because see, like I said, a writer's profession, you're sitting in your room with your book. You don't have to worry about the world. You don't have to worry about your competitors or male authors or whatever. I'm just concerned about my plot, about my book. And once it comes out, and here's where probably I differ, because I don't hesitate to go out there and market my books. You will find reels on my feed which
One should
tell
do that.
people,
One
yeah,
should do
yeah,
that.
it's
Yes.
absolutely necessary. Like, there's nothing to be apologetic about the book you have written.
Absolutely.
And
That's what I was waiting for.
yeah, a lot of people
Yes.
hesitate,
Yes.
a lot of women authors hesitate, like, to say that, oh, like, buy my book. But, if you have written a book, just be proud and just show, here's my book. Go buy it.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't believe in your book, and if you don't pat yourself on the back, nobody else is going to do that for you. And that's everywhere, not just in writing. In
It's there everywhere.
And
Oh,
for men
yes.
as well as women, you have to speak up. I feel that's important.
So well put. So well put. I think that should be our attitude and approach.
Yeah.
Uh, like so many contemporary authors are now trying to do, have you tried to offer one of your novels for a cinematic adaptation?
I'm not at liberty to talk about it because talks are on. So that's, yeah. So I
So
cannot.
then
Really,
I think we
like,
will
yeah.
all be waiting with bated
Yeah.
breath.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Oh,
Fingers
yes.
crossed.
They'll be waiting with bated breath, as
Yeah.
I
Yeah. With
said.
all your good wishes. So guys, just wish for it
Um,
to happen.
None of us, I guess, realized that we have been talking, Preeti, now
Yeah.
since the last 55 minutes.
Yeah, I think you
And
should
we
open
are
up.
all lost in talking. But I'll take you towards almost the last question of
Should
the
we
session.
open up?
And we will then open up, of course.
okay.
But as an author who has written so much, who has risen so many issues, uh, what is your routine? How do you write? When you are writing, you cut yourself off. You don't talk to anybody. You don't look at the phone.
Yeah.
What is the routine? And then, of course, we throw it open.
Yeah, so when my children were small, when they were school-going kids, I used to write when they went to school. So they would leave
Okay,
for school
okay.
at around 8 and they'll come back at 3:30. And I'm one of those moms who want to be home when my kids come home. I want to make food for them. I want to read books to them and all of that. And that was very important to me. So when they were small, I just wrote from 8 to 3:30. After they left, I will start writing, and when they come, I'll stop writing. So that was my routine. Now they've grown up and they've left home.
Your daughter has gone to London, I guess.
Yeah, my daughter's in UK, my son was in Singapore, and now he's here.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and then, like, it's just, then my time is my own. So for
Absolutely.
some time, it was just, I love animals. So I used to have a dog. Then she passed away. A pregnant cat came home on that day and gave me kittens. So from a dog person, I became a cat person.
Oh, lovely.
Of course, I was heartbroken, and I still am, and I deeply grieve the death of my dog. But yeah, these animals keep me company. And that's how I write. Mostly, there will be some animal in my room. There'll be either one,
Really?
two cats. Yeah, there'll be either
Wow.
there'll be a bird, then there'll be two cats, and of course, when the bird is there, the cats are not there. Cats are outside. So yeah, I mostly write in solitude, and once I start a book, I am at it till I finish. So there are times when I have even forgotten to eat lunch or forgotten to shower because I started writing and the scene is so intense that I continue
You can't get
writing.
up and,
I can't, I
can't.
can't.
I
So for
can
me, I'm like,
understand.
yeah, I was writing even when nobody was reading my books. Nobody knew who Preeti Shenoy was. I was writing. Today, millions read me. I'm still writing.
Ah,
So,
lovely,
yeah, I
lovely.
write a
That's the
diary every
spirit.
day. So yesterday I mean, when I'm traveling, I don't carry my diary because it's heavy. So yesterday I told the, hotel people, I said, just give me some paper and pen. I want to write. So they came and gave me one small pad. So I said, isse bada wala nahi hai, saying nahi hai. So I said, okay. And I made my handwriting very small. And I wrote my diary because I said, I'll go home and stick it in my diary. So yeah, I basically am a writer. If I don't write, I feel, I'll die. Like, writing is like breathing to me.
Breathing to you.
Yeah,
Oxygen
yeah,
air.
yeah,
Oxygen air.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, we'll throw the session open. If anyone wants to ask Preeti a question, some of the volunteers will take the mic, please. I think Kavya's hand has gone up the first.
Hello.
Hi.
First of all, thank you so much, ma'am, for such an insightful session, and thank you for coming here. My question to you is that from a very creative space, and I also love writing. But because I'm also in this space where I'm doing a lot of creative writing for content, for social media, for website, for blogs, articles, a lot of time it happens that I feel that I'm losing my art, or it's getting way too monotonous for me. And I feel like I might not be able to continue it, or there's a content block, or the joy that I was having is suddenly turned into monotony. Like, I used to feel rejuvenated when I used to write, but now when I write, I feel like, oh, I have to do this because there's a
Yeah.
deadline for a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
content, or there's
Yeah.
a deadline for a caption, or there's
Yeah.
a deadline for an article. So how do I beat that monotony and come back to my art?
So I think when you feel that way, I think it's important to take a break. Now you have to be practical about it. I don't know your financial situation, but if you have enough money saved up, and if you can take a break from writing, I think it's important to take a break because then you're not feeling it. When you're writing it, you're not feeling it. And then there's another suggestion that I have for you is maybe you can do something writing related. Maybe look for a job as a book publicist or something where you don't have to constantly write. Because when you're writing that, then it's very hard to give that creative energy into a novel or poetry or something like that. So maybe look for a job that where it doesn't drain you, but which still keeps you in touch with your love for writing. Maybe editing or maybe something else. Because there are so many jobs related because you obviously have the skill and the talent and the resolve to write. And I do feel, or if you want, like, take a break, like, this is my suggestion for you. But yeah, it's very difficult to force yourself to write. And see, right now I have finished a book. So I said, I'm not writing any book or novel now. I give that time for the, because you have to allow the creativity to flow in. So you have to give that time. We are not machines there where we keep working every day. It's not like making rotis. Rotis you can make every single day for 365, but you cannot. You can't create art. You can't write. So I feel that little break is essential to bring back the joy that you once felt.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi.
I have two questions for you. One of them is recently in the times of LGBTQ community coming in, there are not a lot of stories on same-sex couples or on the LGBTQ community couples as protagonists.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of writing a book with protagonist as a same-sex couple?
Yeah, to be honest, there is one of my books does feature a same-sex couple, but it's not their story. So if I feel the need in future, I would write where it's absolutely essential to the story. I would write, but I would of course need to do a lot of research. Whereas for the present characters, I would already have done the research. There'll be something brewing, and I don't plan on the stories. The stories find me. I don't find the stories. Something in me something sparks something inside me, then the idea grows. That's how I write. But I wouldn't shy away from it. So I can't say that I will write on this because I don't know what I'm going to write about. So that's what the answer to that question is.
I have one more question, which is you spoke about dark books and how you don't write dark books, you write dark stories instead. But in the recent times, dark books have become a trend and people are investing in it and people are buying it. Would you consider writing a dark book or a novel on a very dark subject?
See, there are two parts to this. Either I don't shy away from discussing dark subjects because suicide is dark, okay, self harm is dark, sexual abuse is dark, marital violence is dark. So all my books have all of this. So I don't shy away from discussing dark topics. But I will never write a book just because, acha, आजकल dark का trend चल रहा है. I'll write one dark book so that it will sell. I'll never do that. I will write a story where I am true to the story, where I feel it's necessary. I would write it. I would never write it as a trend, and I don't shy away from dark topics at all. I feel it's important to discuss it because that's also a part of life.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
There is one more question at the back.
Hello, ma'am. I am a psychology and literature student, so you can just imagine how much I like your work. So, the question I wanted to ask was that Ankita, what she goes through in your books, is a very sensitive topic to pick up. And even when we talk about psychology, it's not easy to whenever even the psychologists say that it's very hard to even make their relations the person's relationships better or tell their family to be supportive or to explain their situation. So how did you decided to portray it? Like, how did you picked up such a sensitive topic and decided to portray it in a way that would be communicated nicely?
See, like I said, I don't choose the stories. The stories choose me, honestly. And I saw so many people having issues. And I felt it was an issue that needed to be talked about, but not in a place of like, say, it has to come on an equal term. Like if young people have to relate to it, I have to like write in a first person voice where the protagonist is young. So that's how I decided. It was not like a deliberate, it was a deliberate thing to keep a person coming of age, young person, because I think bipolar disorder affects more young people than older people. And in your 20s is when it shows up and you don't even know it because you think that, oh, we are growing up, we are changing. So I felt there was a need to create, and that's how I like decided to write that book.
Okay, so I have one more question. I really like poetry and I've started writing very young, but I am facing this problem that whenever I used to write poetry, it requires a very strong emotion. As you know that you write poetry, it like if a emotion invokes you, then only you can
Yeah,
write.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but now it's like because we are following a routine, university and then home. It's there's like no strong emotion invoking. So how do we deal with this when we write poetry?
Because don't force yourself to write. No, write other things. When the poetry comes, it will come. And trust me, life is going to knock you over many times. You'll have a lot of opportunities to feel sad. And instead of reaching out for a drink, like just reach out for that pen and paper and write. It'll be better and there'll be no hangover. You'll feel better after it. Like, yeah,
Thank
so
you.
don't force yourself to write when you're not feeling it.
So, hi, ma'am.
Hi.
I also have two questions. So, before you were talking about that you wrote book on guys' perspective as well.
Yes.
So, how are you able to write from guys' perspective? Because their monologue and all those things. Even understanding girls is different as a girl. There are so many things in a girl's head. So, understanding guys is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
actually?
she's-
I did,
did that?
yeah.
I mean, every teenager perhaps.
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
through
No, I
this.
have a son. I have a son whom I have a very close relationship with. So I'll ask him, like, what do you feel? Is this right? I have male friends who I can speak to freely, and I'll ask them, what is it? My husband, I hound him. I've asked him all kinds of questions, and he's used to it. Like, I'll say, oh, like, will this happen? Will this thing happen? Will a guy feel like this? And poor guy, he'll sit and sincerely think and he'll answer me. And yeah, it's just basically asking a lot of questions and observing and really listening to what they share and what they say. That's how I write it.
So my second question is about Ankita and Dr. Madhu. So sorry, I
Madhusudan,
cannot.
yeah.
Yeah. So there, when I was reading your novel, so I thought that maybe since I'm also psychology student and literature student, so we always hear from our professor that there are always boundaries where patient and therapist are not able to take it. Transference and counter transference happens, and at one point I also felt like Ankita was depending too much on the psychiatrist. Is it healthy or not? Is it within the boundary or not? So I'm not able to understand, are they like healthy boundaries between them or not? Because it doesn't feel like to me that she depends on him a lot more than others.
Yeah, as a novelist, I'm not concerned because I'm not a psychologist. So I'm not concerned with, because the patient feels what the patient feels. I don't have to be accurate. I'm not writing a doctoral feelings. You're allowed, because a novel is a space where you can have a relationship with a teacher which is not accepted in a society. I mean, that's what makes the story interesting. And that book has been prescribed by Nimhans. So imagine my joy when, that book is prescribed by Nimhans, and that book is in so many psychiatrists' offices. When the patients are waiting, that book is right there. So if it is unhealthy, clearly by the end of the book, she has managed to come out of it and get out of her problem. And when you are in therapy, if it is unhealthy, so be it. If he is like a stick to support her, so be it. How does it matter if it has happened? And I wasn't honestly concerned with boundary or counter transference, and it did not matter to me as a storyteller. All that mattered to me was her emotions, her character, what she felt, and she felt what she felt. Because when someone feels what they feel, they are not taking the society's permission. They are not asking, oh, is this right? Can I feel this way? Feelings just come. And that's what I have been honest to her feelings in that book. I hope this answered the question. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks.
So there is one last question that we'll take up and wrap up at the back.
We'll take from her.
Oh yes,
Always
we
mean.
will.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
as a writer, I find it very difficult to portray some sexual scenes on the screen or be it on my writing. So, there's always this sense of hesitation that what if I cross that thin line and reach the stage of obscenity? I want to understand that how do you draw that thin line between obscenity and not so obscene and pleasure sex?
But that is a very
Yeah, it's a very good
question.
Yeah, because see, it depends on, you just have to ask yourself this question. Are you writing erotica and porn, or are you writing this from a place of emotion? If you are writing it from a place of emotion, it's not going to be obscene. And who is deciding obscene or not obscene? It's you. So it's like a very fine line. So stay true to the character. Now suppose there is a character who is, maybe sexually abusive. Okay, the person is kinked in the head. The person gets joy out of some stuff like that. Then you have to be true to the character. Then you can't write all, properly, and you should not be aware. You should just lose yourself in the character and write. And anything can be, don't be scared when writing. It can all be edited out. So your editor is going to tell you, look, maybe you can say it this way. Get a good editor, write what you want to from the heart, staying true to the character. Whatever the character feels is you. You become the character and you write, and later you can either remove some things. But when you are in the flow, do not censor yourself, write. And remember that nobody is going to read it unless you choose to show it. So maybe that tip will help you. So just write it, and later you can think about it, refine it. There's always a second draft, third draft. My books go through so many drafts. Like, I'll first write it as it comes. And sometimes when I read it, I'll be like, oh, okay, fine. It's just unconscious stream which is flowing. And I'm like, okay, this is so grammatically wrong. It doesn't matter. Second draft, you can fix it. Third draft, it'll become better. Then you can polish it fine till it goes out to the editor, who will again refine it. I hope this helps.
Oh, it is a very insightful answer, I must say. This differentiation between writing with and from emotions and writing disconnectedly makes all the difference.
Yes.
Beautifully put. I think we all have to clap for Preeti for this. Fantastically put. We'll take the last question from ma'am and then we'll wrap up. We're already running out of time. It's already...
Hello, Preeti ma'am.
Hi, Melanie.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so carrying forward the same question, if there are wars between the editor and the writer, who ultimately wins. And has there been any such one incident where you wanted to say it in A way, but the editor said it's better in the B way, and ultimately the D way won? So
Yeah, actually I face the opposite problem because my books sell. So the editors like are afraid to touch my work, like, you know. But right now in Harper, like my books have shifted to Harper. I've got a fantastic editor who I have a great relationship with. And I'm a very easy person that way, you know. It's not that I'm going to fight with them saying, oh, you put the comma here. Because they are trying to help me. So it's best that I see what they say. And so I never have wars that way. I'm like very easygoing. But certain things like, if the editor, sometimes I've had not so good editors. And then what they have done is like my books, you know, are in two voices. So they'll give the same uniformity. All the characters will talk because they are thinking that they are doing a good job of doing. Then I say, no, no, look, the voice has to be like that. Because, you know, Arush is not going to talk like Pooja. It's just an example I'm giving. Or Aman is not going to talk like Shruti. So in that case, like I tell them, look, it has to be this way. I've chosen this because of this. So yeah, otherwise I'm happy for the editing. Whatever inputs people have to say, I'm happy.
Fantastic. I think we need to really applaud for this kind of such an honest dil se answer.
Thank you so much, Shubha.
Most of the authors beat around the bush and act hi-fi. Most of the authors that I have come across.
Yeah,
But
they
you have
do.
been so direct and so frank with us.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for being bringing that kind of an honesty. And now I know why the books sell.
Thank you
It
so
is.
much. It
I
was
think-
wonderful interacting with all of you. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you so much. I think I'm taking away, Preeti, from this conversation that we had, 2 or 3 very important things. A, be honest to your story and to yourself and to your emotions and to your characters.
Absolutely, yes.
That is my first thing. And secondly, you said something very important, that only 19% of women in India constitute the workforce. So in order to, in fact, even become writers, you need to be economically independent. You have to push that. And of course, the third thing is, well, if you write a good thing, it will always sell. Am I right when I say
No,
that?
if you write a good thing, it will always sell. I'll have to disagree because there are so many good books out there which don't
Which
sell.
don't
There are
sell,
a lot
that's
of,
true.
you know, there are a lot of factors there which we don't know. There's that X factor. No matter, like,
Yes.
you know, marketing might be spot on, visibility may not be there. I don't know what it is. But yeah,
Right.
that X factor is beyond our control.
Beyond our
We
control.
can hope it will sell.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
sure you have already inspired so many of us to pick up the pens and begin to write. That is, I guess, the biggest thing, because the tradition should continue. आपके influence से और लोग कलम उठाएं, यही सोच के I think we bring this session to a close. Thank you very much. You have been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.